the prelim. So we'll dive right into the interim title, Derek Lewis, Cyril Gagné. Does anyone, first, before we get into the actual meat of the fight, does anyone have any opinions on the fact that it's for an interim title?
Not really.
Didn't we cover this in a podcast before about how it was
Wolf tickets? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dana White's classic move. How do I get more views on this pay-per-view? Interim, slap it on, see what happens, drive views up, give Ngannou a bit of a beating about the fact that he talked about going to boxing and he was outspoken about fighter pay. But also, it doesn't mean much. Interim titles get handed out like, I don't know. They're all over the place. They don't matter anymore. They're so cheap at the moment.
It's the other side of it as well, where it's Dana White saying, oh, you want to negotiate and you want to be difficult about fights. Oh, cheers, Ngannou. Cheers, John Jones. Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to give out belts to everybody and you can all fuck off and sit in obscurity for a while. And I think that's what the interim title in this is.
Yeah. Dan Hardy said something very, very poignant on his podcast with Dan Strauss. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it, and then go and watch Robbie's interview with Dan Strauss, obviously. But he mentioned that, yeah, it's literally just a negotiation tactic. You know, they're sitting in with 600 mil in the bank. John Jones is asking for 10, and Ngannou's asking for whatever. You know, Ngannou gets paid $330K, and he's supposedly the baddest man on the planet. And Jake Paul takes 10 million from a boxing fight, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, my thoughts on the meat of the fight, if we can dive into that. When I was thinking about this, there's not many heavyweights. I don't think there's any heavyweights that are like Cyril Gagné, but I think the closest heavyweight to him is Volkov, and Volkov's like a shit Gagné in that he fights long. He doesn't load up on every single shot like you'd expect a heavyweight to. He ranges well and he mixes up his strikes from head to like from top to bottom, right? So if we go back and watch the Derek Lewis and Alexander Volkov fight, what happened? Derek got absolutely smoked for 4.5 rounds. 5.5 rounds, essentially. And then what happened? Big overhand right, Volkov's out, right? Now, we've seen Gagné do this over a sustained amount of time. And personally, although Derek Lewis has said that he's had his operations, his back's fixed, his knees are better, and he's able to actually train properly, he's still the same fighter in a lot of ways. Has he made improvements? Yes, he has. But does he rely on his power? Yes, he does. And I will always side on the side. Jesus, my English is terrible. I will always move to the side of the fighter that's the more technical. And I think Cyril Gagné is the most technical striker in heavyweight fighting at this point.
I would add to that Derek Lewis is probably the least technical fighter possibly in the heavyweight division. But
How
what I'd say,
dare you? Roy Nelson once fought in the UFC heavyweight division.
No, you know what?
Yeah,
Say
the
Roy
black
Nelson,
belt.
I stand by
Black belt.
it. Derek Lewis is the highest rank for skill. He has the biggest disparity out of anyone in the UFC. He is obscenely ranked for how little ability he has. And I don't mean this as an insult. He's very successful. But he himself has said it, that if Derek Lewis manages to win a belt, the UFC heavyweight division should be embarrassed. Yeah. He said that a few days ago, I think. And he was fucking spot on. Volkov should have won that fight. He should have won it, hands down. And I guess his focus slipped for a little bit in the last minute.
It's
last
because
30 seconds or so.
It's because his back tattoo hadn't been finished yet. That's what it was.
Well, now he should be fine in that case.
Yeah, he should be fine.
Cyril Gane is probably one of my favorite heavyweight fighters, actually. And again, I'm not actually a big fan of the heavyweight division because it's shallow, and shallow divisions create not such good fights at the end of the day. But Cyril Gane is a very entertaining guy. He's very skilled. And And, I would never bet against him in this fight, except for the fact that Derek Lewis just seems to win when he fucking shouldn't.
Lee?
So I thought I had the profound insight that this was going to be very similar to the Ozdemir fight. And you've kind of upset me with that one. But looking back to it, it is very true. It's kind of, is it going to be that type of fight? Yes. Is Derek Lewis going to hand this big hammer and knock him out? I don't know. We'll see. That's where the interest comes from. Going back to the kind of business side of it and the marketing side of it, Derek Lewis got this fight for that tweet that said, "Shit, I'll take the fight for 8 million." Now, I know he's playing the cards of, my back's great, I've had all the treatments. He said that for the last 3 fights. And then after all the fights, he's gone, "Oh, my back's bad, my back's bad." He's made it clear in no uncertain terms that he's there to make as much money as he can, as quick as he can. And do you know what? All the power to him. I just think as he creeps up in age, as his injuries likely get worse over time, I think the chances of him landing that big knockout blow get less. And Cyril Gane is a real technical fighter who I might add has trained with Ngannou, knows his style, won't have the fear that other people have because he's been in there with him before, and actually sets up a really interesting title fight if Gane wins.
I just want to add, sorry, Ian, before I chuck it over to you. The thing, if I'm Cyril Gane, sorry, that's you, Robbie, Cyril Gane, if I'm his coach, right, and I'm him as a fighter, what do? I'm going to beat the brakes off of Derek Lewis's legs. I'm going to teep him in the body as much as I can and just wear that fucker down, right? Because in round 4 or round 5, when his hands are on his knees, you just chin him, right? And, you might not put him away, but his in and out style, I think the evasion of that big overhand, right? He loads it up so much, right? My nan could see it. She lives in Wales. You know what I mean? Like, it comes from a mile out. So yeah, I think the footwork and the in and out movement and the shot selection, the fight IQ of Cyril Gane is just going to be way too much. Ian, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I have plenty of thoughts.
Good. That's pleasing.
This fight,
Good to hear something going on.
Yeah, it's like this is tailor made really for Cyril Gane to get the win. I mean, when you're looking at Derek Lewis in this fight is not going to go in there. He's not going to outstrike him. He's not as good as an athlete as Cyril Gane. What Derek Lewis is going to have to do in there is going to have to try come in there and use his experience, use his fight IQ, and try and set traps. Look at whether we say it or whether or not, we can say what we like. He's fighting for a UFC title, so he has some level of fight IQ. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And I mean, if he can set those traps, his only way out of this is landing a big shot, and that's it. And if this fight gets finished early, it will probably be more like Derek Lewis landing that shot. But as the guy said, the longer that this fight goes on, the harder it is going to be for him to do that. And it's also going to be very hard because of the guy who's standing across from him, Cyril Gane, who has been pretty much flawless so far in his UFC career.
For sure. Who
is fighting at a very technical, high level, non-risk kind of, which I have a couple of thoughts on the way he fights. I understand the way he fights long. He'll use the leg kick, like Harry said. He'll use that to set up his punches in the later rounds, and he can come out with like his speed and his movement for a heavyweight. Cyril Gane's speed and movement is next to none. It's on a basis of a next level heavyweight. The only thing that I would like to see a little bit more from Cyril Gane is start taking a few more chances in fights. I think that with Volkov and stuff like that, with the guys he's been in against, he has been comfortably winning fights, whereas that I prefer, and it's just a personal thing for me, I like to see these guys take a few chances and try and get a few finishes. An example I could give on that, it would be Kamaru Usman, who was winning easily in his fights, but he needed to get to the next level as a fighter and also to get that buzz around him. He's starting to finish guys now. I think Cyril Gane has to do that as well. And I think that this is the perfect fight for him to do that. If he can go in and he can put Derek Lewis away inside the distance, that's perfectly sets up the unified title fight with Francis Ngannou, who is a former training partner who used to train with Fernand Lopez, who is now training Cyril Gane too. I mean, that's the basics of this fight. Cyril Gane needs to fight his fight, which he always does and is always successful in doing. He's going to chop the legs. He's going to try and land shots. And like, I mean, it's all going to boil down to how badly Derek Lewis wants this. He's been in his title shot before. He, like, if he's back is against the wall in round 3, round 4, and he's getting his legs beat up, he's getting hit with flurries of punches, it's all going to be weathered down to he wants to stay in there and try and fight it out more so. But it's also up to Cyril Gane to turn up that pressure and try get the finish. That's what I really want to see from Gane in this fight.
The only thing I will say is you probably don't want to be taking too many risks against Derek Lewis.
No, you don't. But like, you're going to have to take risks at some stage. And the heavyweight division is a dangerous division no matter what. You know, if you get hit with one shot with any fighter, doesn't matter whether it's Derek Lewis or anybody else. And I mean, that might, like, he may stay doing it. I'm just talking about what I would like to see. Look, he's in there and he's getting the fucking thing done. He's winning his fights and kudos to him. But I mean, if he's going to stay and do that, he will generate a level. Like, who would you honestly prefer going in there to see fight? Francis Ngannou, who's going to knock 7 shades of shit out of somebody and who you're absolutely terrified to see what's going to happen? Or would you prefer to see Cyril Gane fight on the outside and kick the shit out of people's legs and land those big shots and win comfortable decisions every time? Like, I know what I would like to see each time.
Bleed.
But just bleed. That's it. That's the violent man coming out in me. I mean, but that's what heavyweight. What really entices us watching heavyweight fights is that knowing that one shot could finish the fight at any moment, and that's why we're always on the edge of our seats watching heavyweight fights. And, you know, I can't blame Gane for going doing that. I ain't going in fighting these monsters. He's got to do what he's got to do. But I mean, if to get to the next level as a fighter, if you want to get the superstar status, you are going to have to start taking some chances.
Man,
Right.
he's line. Well, sorry, Harry, I see you want to move on. I was just going to say he's got an interim title shot. He's this close to getting to the title. We never see anyone get more risky when they get the belt. If we're not seeing it yet, we're never going to see a risk taking.
Well, Kamaru Usman was a decision machine until 3 fights ago, until he started finishing guys. And he finished Colby Covington, he finished Gilbert Burns, and he knocked out Jorge Masvidal. So he was a person who was winning decisions, won the title, and then started knocking out guys. And you can see the level of progression in his career. He's starting to get the buzz. Now since he started knocking people out, that's when people are starting to talk in him in the pound for pound status list and stuff like that.
We will move on and we'll get to picks, but I think this is an important point to note. That is just because the monopoly on MMA is by the UFC, and the UFC pride themselves on finishes, right? Like, if we go back to Pride days, not to say that Pride didn't pride themselves on finishes, Jesus. However, what they did do is they wanted to see wars. They wanted to see technical battles. They wanted to see guys go in there and give everything. If they didn't get a finish, fine. They were still lauded as a warrior, right? The UFC's marketing ploy is we see finishes. But before we get on a mad rant and spend another half an hour on this fight, Ian, picks.
My pick is Cyril Gane to either win late or by decision. I'm probably going to go with Cyril Gane by 4th round stoppage.
Okay, Lee.
So I think my head is kind of the smart option, say Gane by decision, playing it safe. But I think I want to pick Gane by a late stoppage with Derek Lewis resembling something like a Dada 3000, absolutely exhausted and just kind of giving up the ghost.
Well, let's hope there's not 2 heart attacks in there.
Well, yeah, not that.
Yeah, I think along those lines, late finish by Cyril Gane. Heavyweight fights tend to either end early with knockouts or late because both of the fighters just gas and can't keep going. But Cyril Gane has got unusually good cardio. He's very technical. I think Derek Lewis basically runs out of steam, and Cyril Gane picks his shots until he gets the TKO or the knockout.
So my pick is that at the weigh-ins, Derek Lewis is going to paint one half of his face blue and one half of his face white. He's going to embody Paul Craig, and he's going to get this done at 4:59 of round 5 by a massive overhand right. No, I'm obviously joking. Yeah, I don't think Cyril Gagné finishes Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis has a way of just staying in fights, right? Like, what did he say? Alongside that quote of, if I win the heavyweight title, the UFC heavyweight division should be embarrassed. He also was like, yeah, I just kick dudes in the nuts so I can take a break. Right? Like he Jesus. Like, he finds a way to stay in fights, right? And I don't think Gane, unless he is 100% confident that he can wade in, land shots, and Lewis won't be able to throw back and land, he won't take that risk, right? What Ian was saying was bang on. So I take Gane versus via a 5-round decision.